A building's value, in my opinion, is in its base rather than its walls. A man is no different. After enough years on the job, you discover that when politics tries to dictate what is good enough, and concrete crumbles to dust. The name Cole Bennett is mine. I've worked in construction for more than 25 years, mostly in Kingston and Kitchener, Ontario. They dubbed me a foreman at Cedarworks Infrastructure, but I'm not the type of guy who gives a damn about titles. I operated job sites like they were my second home, carried a clipboard, and wore a beat-up hard hat. I was trusted by the crew. We created long-lasting items. On a chilly morning in early September, when the air still had that deceptive warmth that makes you believe summer is still here, I met Trevor Langford for the first time. Tall, lean, nice boots with clean soles. He entered the site trailer as if he owned it. Corporate in nature, claimed to have moved from the Vancouver office to manage cost efficiency for all of our projects in Ontario. We exchanged handshakes. He held on tight but impatiently. He looked at the site plan as if it were a debt to him and remarked, "You must be Mr. Bennett. They say you're a stickler." I said, being kind, "I like the term thorough." His eyes didn't smile, but he did. "All right, within reason. We need folks like that." I realized then that we were from different planets. The foundation of mine was perspiration, steel-toe boots, and doing it correctly the first time. Numbers and the appearance of accomplishment seemed to be his main concerns. The construction of Maple Street Elementary had just begun. The construction of a brand new school for about 400 pupils in Peel Region was a top public priority. Within 3 weeks, the concrete was supposed to be poured. In close collaboration with the engineers, I had specified a 35 megapascal mix for the foundation, built to withstand harsh winters and decades of foot traffic in schoolyards. This product is sturdy and dependable. During our weekly operations meeting, 2 days following our initial meeting, Trevor slipped a document onto my desk after saying, "Minor change." He turned to the materials section. "The provider has changed. You will notice that the revised mix still complies with code." I went through the sheet. 25,000 megapascal. Yes, it is legal in theory, just almost. That grade was not intended for multi-classroom foundations, but rather for sidewalks and low-load warehouse slabs. I clenched my jaw. "We didn't submit this to the board." I stated, "No, but it will save us nearly $70,000 on materials," Trevor said too carelessly. "And nobody is inspecting these days due to inspection delays." I merely stared at him without saying anything. Ben Cloutier looked up from his site map across the table behind his back. He has collaborated with me for more than 10 years. He was aware that my silence indicated that I was thinking, and not in a positive way. I placed the updated specifications on the kitchen table at home that evening. Sandra poured tea for us both. She read the figures quietly without saying anything. Her voice was firm when she finally spoke. "Are you not going to approve of this?" I gave a head shake. "No, but I might lose if I push back. When that occurs, we'll address it." She stated, "It's better than you telling a parent why their child's classroom broke down." A few feet away, Emma was working on her homework. She raised her head. "Is this the new school that's located next to Maple and 10th Line?" "Yes," I said. She mentioned that the younger brother of my friend Amina is beginning junior kindergarten there. They're ecstatic. My heart felt suddenly heavy than concrete as I gazed at the paper. Although Trevor was unaware of it at the time, this was no ordinary construction site. More important than any hospital or apartment complex I had constructed was this one, because the risk wasn't merely hypothetical. For the first time in years, it was named a face. A classroom. I returned to the trailer with the updated specifications the following morning. Trevor was already there, scrolling on his tablet while enjoying a cappuccino. He hardly raised his head. I went over the figures. I responded coolly. "We didn't promise this mix. The load criteria are not met. It's a shortcut." His smile was corporate and icy. "It works well." The page was folded in half, not if it breaks by the 5th year. His tone dipped somewhat, but his face remained the same. "You are not here to write specs. You are here to follow them." I didn't respond. Now, however, I realized that this was only the initial cut, And it wouldn't be the last until I took action. I took a quick look at the material manifest he had placed on the table's corner. There was a new prefix in the concrete product code that I had never seen before. I cautiously turned it over after picking it up. That's when I noticed it. None of our previous deliveries had the mix number. This version was designed for parking lots. When Cole looked at the paperwork Trevor had carelessly placed on the table, he saw that the concrete wasn't just shoddy, it was flawed. There was a delay in the initial shipment of concrete. I realized then that something was wrong. Weather, traffic, or a driver calling in sick can all cause delays. However, I had verified everything with dispatch the day before, and the sky was fine that morning. Biagio sang. However, no trucks had arrived, and no reason was given. With my boots firmly set in the packed dirt, I stood at the edge of the site and gazed down at the rebar grid that we had installed the afternoon before. It was prepared. We were prepared. However, there was something preventing the pour, and I suspected it wasn't traffic. My radio buzzed 3 minutes later. Cole, Ben is here. I spoke with a quality mix representative over the phone, and he stated that they are re-examining the batch code. Why? He refused to say. After making my way back to the trailer, I opened the order manifest. Once more, the source had changed. We didn't use it on the previous 3 projects. Construct materials. The new name was hardly recognizable. Additionally, the mix code didn't appear to be correct. The first prefix was CXL25. I was aware that it meant 25 megapascal once more. Ben was lighting a cigarette close to the storage container when I went outside, unless something was truly bothering him. He never smoked. Do you see anything strange about this new supplier? I inquired. Ben narrowed his eyes and took a drag. A pair of pallets arrived yesterday. No tags, just taped on printed slips. The bags had a different consistency when I checked them. Appeared lighter. He hesitated. Do you believe they're taking shortcuts once more? I doubt it. I am aware. For a while, we stood silently while the sound of drills reverberated in the background. Then I remembered something Ben said. I've spent 20 years working for men who ignored me. You? The only person I've seen truly stare down is you. After flicking off the cigarette, he left. I returned inside and took out the original set of blueprints, the one that had been approved by the city and stamped, a total of 35 megapascal, as clear as day. I then opened the most recent update from top office for Trevor, 25. No digital signature, no engineer stamp. It was more than a simple transfer. A silent override was placed. I grabbed the phone and dialed the Hamilton materials coordinator for Cedarworks. She sounded anxious. She acknowledged that she could perceive the disparity. However, I am unable to overturn regional approval. Langford would have been the source of that. Did he provide an explanation? Efficiency. I was only informed that, with my heart racing, I hung up. Efficiency once more. The word was turning into poison. I took a trip around the place later that day. There were signs wherever I looked, but I needed to clear my thoughts. It was uncommon, unless someone wanted to push the time frame, that the anchor bolts had arrived sooner than expected. Smaller pieces of the curing blankets had been taken out. 10 meters had been cut off, even the safety barrier. Minor things that aren't against the law. Together, however, they created an image. I went back to the personnel files in the trailer. Last week, Trevor brought in a Vancouver-based individual to take the role of the junior safety officer. Not a word. No justification. Under our noses. They were changing the documents, the crew, and the specifications. And the only one resisting was me. That evening, I gave Emma School a call to see how she was doing. Nothing pressing. Simply to hear that everything was all right from the voice on the other end. Sandra was in the kitchen, observing me when I hung up. She made no inquiries. She didn't have to. She knew something had changed, and I could see it in her eyes. I said, I don't want to frighten you. However, something is taking place at the location. Furthermore, it goes beyond spreadsheet data. Do you believe that someone is attempting to hide it? I paused. Not just yet. However, they are undoubtedly attempting to keep it quiet. I went over each delivery manifest for the previous 10 days the following morning. While some did not have initials, others did. There was nothing in the quality control checkboxes. Metadata was removed from the digital versions. There was no author tag or upload date. I peered out the window. Like a silent query, the foundation crater sprawled open beneath the sky. I also addressed myself a question I'd been avoiding. Whose name will be on the report if I say nothing and something goes wrong in 5 years? I had the solution. Cole's jaw clenched as he gazed at the manifest once more. If I remain silent and something goes wrong in 5 years, whose name is on the report? The first cement trucks lined up on Monday at 6:45. At 6:45, I was let go. Not even the tree line had been illuminated by the sun yet. The mist hung low around the rebar grid like a warning, curling off the ground. For a poor day, it was awfully quiet. With their boots stamping the morning chill from the soil, the group stood in loose formation, drinking coffee. I mentally went over the list: heat blankets, curing strategy, and concrete mix. It didn't add up. The trucks, which had the identical mix code CXL25 that I had noted last week, were idling outside the gate, their drums rotating slowly. I hadn't given my okay. I hadn't approved anything. I went up to the first truck. For more than 10 years, the driver, a burly man called Jamie, had been making deliveries to my locations. He rolled the window down. "Good morning, Cole. There is a problem. This combo isn't typical for us. It feels light." I gave a nod. "You're correct. Keep the line in. Wait till I clean it before pouring." Jamie nodded slowly and sympathetically. "I got it." I went directly to the site trailer. The overhead lights were humming, and the door was already open. Trevor and 2 junior supervisors, recent Vancouver hires, were inside going over a tablet. When I intervened, they glanced up. The air was thicker than dust from concrete. "Are you sure you won't stop this again?" Without raising his gaze, Trevor inquired. "Yes," I said, "because the structural load requirements are not met by this mix, and you are aware of it." Kevin, one of the juniors, shifted uneasily. He understood how I operated because he had observed me on a couple previous builds. After a few moments, he looked down at his clipboard. Trevor got up and placed the iPad on the desk slowly. "I'm going to say this once. Cole, corporate has given its approval to the concrete. The minimal building code is met by it. You are too preoccupied with engineering margins to postpone this pour." I stated, "It's not about margins. It has to do with the fact that we will be repairing the foundation of a school in a few years. Or worse." Trevor moved to get closer to me by going around the desk. He didn't shout. He didn't use profanity. He wasn't like that. Like a scalpel, his speech was low and piercing. "The task is to construct this school," he stated, "punctual, within the allocated budget, for a period. Perhaps you're no longer the right man for this position if you can't handle that." I inhaled while looking around the room at everyone's faces. Kevin's eyes were fixed on his documents. With a pen, the other junior fidgeted. Nobody looked at me. "I refuse to pour inferior concrete beneath a school," I declared. "Look for someone else." Trevor got red in the face. I noticed the veneer cracking for the first time. "You've been fired. Get off my site and pack your tools." I refrained from arguing. I didn't speak louder. I simply turned, left the trailer, and headed for the parking lot. With the trucks still idling and their emissions blending with the mist, the sky had become brighter. I looked back as I packed my stuff into the back of my pickup. Kevin's face was unreadable as he watched through the window. He appeared to want to talk but remained still. With firm hands, I slid behind the wheel. Since Trevor was unaware of what I had done over the weekend, he believed that this was the end of our chat. Every site document was already backed up to an encrypted drive by me, emails displaying changes to the materials, purchase orders with updated prices, images of the unapproved changes contrasted with the original drawings. I had documents. In addition, I had time. I took out my phone and made the first official call that afternoon to Naomi Burns. While I was parked outside a peaceful coffee shop on Mississauga's Dundas Street on the 3rd ring, she answered. "Burns talking. Cole Bennett is this person. We got together during the municipal construction last year." "All right." The Central Recreation Center's foreman. "What's happening?" I said. "I have a story for you. However, it goes beyond a building. It concerns what occurs when financial savings take precedence over the security of children." On the other end, there was stillness. Then she became abrasive. "I'm paying attention." Cole's jaw clenched as he gazed at the manifest once more. "If I remain silent and something goes wrong in 5 years, whose name is on the report. My phone buzzed 5 times by the time I got home, and none of the buzzes were positive. 2 text messages from unidentified numbers, one from an old contact at a Hamilton supplier, and 2 missed calls from subcontractors. I immediately scrolled through. You just ruined things for yourself. Benton, be careful who you cross. As I stepped in, Sandra's eyes narrowed before I could even open my mouth. Looking up from the sink, what took place? I took a stroll. She leaned on the counter after drying her hands. They pushed, or did you walk? Both, I replied. Trevor formally announced it, like a person preparing for a second wave. She nodded slowly. I observed her expression, anticipating the concern, the fear of money, and the how will we get by discussion. However, she uttered something unexpected instead. All right, if you had given in, you wouldn't be able to live with yourself. With a sigh, I took the folded manifest out of my jacket pocket and laid it on the table like a courtroom piece of evidence. I said, they're going to bury me for this, blackball me throughout the whole sector. She touched my hand, so perhaps it's time to stop following their rules. Import credit. I met Naomi Burns the following day at a tiny cafe hidden behind a bookshop. Her keen eyes, harsh haircut, and lack of small talk gave her a younger appearance than I remembered. She arrived with a digital recorder, a notepad, and a posture that suggested hunger. As we sat down, she stated, I need to know 2 things first. First, would you mind being on record? After a while, I said, but not until I'm certain that someone is paying attention. She gave a nod. Just secondly, how deep is it? The flash disk was slid across the table by me. Begin there. She plugged her laptop in and opened it. The screen quickly filled with email threads, purchase orders, blueprints, and inspection logs, but she whispered, Jesus, for what duration has this been occurring? There are 3 initiatives that I am certain about, most likely more. Naomi made no request for coffee. For 10 continuous minutes, she didn't even raise her head. Her voice was sharper when she did. This isn't a single poor decision. This is a systematic substitution paper trail. Additionally, it appears that management gave its approval at all levels. I gave a nod, and they're making me the issue now. I formally reported a project variation to the Ontario Building Authority in Etobicoke later that day. Beverly Lynn, the intake officer, knew who I was from previous inspections. Cole Bennett, she inquired, your file has always been clean. I handed her the printed evidence folder and said, not anymore. By the 3rd email, she had raised her eyebrows after opening it and flipping through a few pages. We must shut down the site right away if what you're saying is accurate. For me, it's already closed. I stated. Beverly didn't grin. She simply gave one nod, got up, and walked out of the room with the file. My phone phoned again in the evening, but this time it was from a blacklisted number. I let the voicemail go. Remain away from matters that don't affect you. This will not go well. With the kitchen light humming overhead, I sat at the dining room table and stared at my phone as if it would provide an answer to the question I couldn't stop asking. Was I making the correct decision? Sandra entered, set a brand new tea mug in front of me, and remained silent. She didn't have to. Emma returned home from study group later that evening. With caution, she said, Dad, Amina's mother asked if you're the one attempting to shut down the Maple Street school. I paused. I'm attempting to ensure its safety. After giving me a lengthy look, she nodded. All right, I'll let them know that. My stomach constricted as I attempted to grin. Trevor was launching a slander campaign in addition to closing doors behind me, portraying me as a saboteur, an unhappy worker, and possibly even envious of less experienced supervisors. I had risk, and he had reach. However, he lacked evidence, and I had just given mine to the appropriate individuals. You'll regret this. Cole got an anonymous message. Keep out. No name given. I wasn't the only one who spoke up the following morning. Just after 7:30, my phone rang. I froze when I saw Ben Cloutier's name on the screen. Since the day I was dismissed, I had not heard from him. Silence, or worst, remoteness, was what I half expected. However, his voice was quiet when it was heard over the line. Nearly raspy, do you have time to grab coffee? Our mugs were steaming between us as we sat across from one another in Joe's Diner on Lakeshore Road 20 minutes later. Ben appeared worn out, not only because of the work, but also because of suppressing something. Days was 16 hours, he whispered. Langford is using the whip, claims that we are running late because they're rushing. I remarked, the city is going to close them down. Ben gave a nod. I assumed there will be something soon. All I wanted was to avoid becoming the first one to light the fuse. I retrieved a folded envelope from my coat pocket. What is this? He inquired. Everything I submitted. It is now public knowledge. After hesitating, he reclined on his chair. Two of the men saved texts, pictures, even voice memos from safety briefings are included. Langford instructs us to disregard small deviations. I gave him my full attention. That's what we need. Ben tapped his mug's rim. Cole, we're not paper pushers. We are the crew. We never imagined that we would have to come forward as whistleblowers. Hero status is not required of you. Just be truthful. For a minute, he gazed out the window. Then he gave one nod. I will speak with the others. I put Ben in touch with Lisa Tremblay, a lawyer who specializes in construction law, in whistleblower protection, and Naomi Burns the same day. Naomi had already begun looking through old delivery logs and permissions. What she was discovering was damning, not simply unsettling. She put a chart over her desk and stated 6 separate builds in the past 3 years. Everybody complained about the foundation moving or cracking too soon. Langford encouraged you to use the same supplier, and everyone did. I looked over the list. By the time I got to the bottom, my stomach dropped. This list includes Emma's school project, Naomi muttered. The same location on Maple Street. With a tense voice, I nodded. I understand. Naomi raised her head. Cole, this is about more than just a job now. Children are seated on slabs that were not intended to support them. Community centers are among these locations. A clinic for medical care, even a complex of affordable apartments. I stated, I told them. I warned them that this would occur. We sat quietly. This is going to be more than one article, Naomi added. Perhaps it's a series or a court inquiry. Are you prepared for that? After glancing at her, I imagined Sandra in the dark kitchen, brewing tea. I imagined Emma standing up for me in front of Amina's relatives. Since the day I left that work, I have been thinking about the weight of concrete in my chest. I've been prepared ever since Langford deceived me. Lisa Tremblay called me that evening. Ben is in. Additionally, 5 more are willing to provide records in an anonymous manner. However, they desire safety. You'll manage it. I'll submit a file with privilege. For now, they will be protected. However, if it ends up in court, it will, I replied. I examined the folder Naomi shared with me before turning in for the night. Delivery slips, site addresses, and anomalies in the core sample. The evidence was now structured rather than dispersed, unambiguous, unquestionable. Emma's school assignment was still unfinished when I sat at the table with my coffee mug. What makes a building safe was the title of the poster she was sketching. I grabbed a red marker without thinking and underlined her response. Strong foundations, sincere employees. She hadn't sought my assistance. Somehow, though, she already knew more than the majority of the grown men I had dealt with. Emma's school project is on this list too, Naomi added, opening her laptop and pointing to a line. 3 months later, handcuffed, Trevor Langford entered a courtroom. Through the front door, I entered. It was a chilly February morning. Silence and gray stone lined the courthouse. On the day he dismissed me, I wore the same jacket. It's habit, not symbolism. He once attempted to take the clipboard away from me, but that jacket had seen more truth. Sandra accompanied me. The entire time we waited in the hallway, she held my hand. Emma had messaged me that morning while she was at school, saying, "Good luck, Dad. Be honest like you always have." Trevor appeared smaller than I remembered in the courtroom, not in a physical sense, but he had lost the confidence he formerly exuded, the aura of corporate arrogance. He sat rigidly next to his lawyers, who spoke in low tones without looking at him. The charges were a list of all the things I was afraid of on the job site that day: fabricating building specifications, jeopardizing public safety, careless monitoring of items under regulation, deception. As the first witness, I was summoned. I straightened up, held up my hand, and vowed to be honest. I then informed them. I informed them of the mismatched manifest codes, about the pressure to remain silent, the anonymous threats, and the erased digital signatures. I explained to them how I was persuaded that minimum was sufficient for a school by a man who had never poured a slab in his life. I also explained to them why I walked. With her notebook in hand, Naomi sat in the gallery. Ben was also present, as were two members of the crew who had submitted their paperwork. I was steadied by their presence. I turned away from Trevor as I stepped down. I didn't have to. The verdict was rendered 2 days later. I feel guilty. He would be imprisoned for 2 years and reimburse all impacted sites. Cedar Works infrastructure was penalized, audited, and had its public project licenses revoked for a period of 5 years. Weeks later, the greater triumph was achieved. I received an invitation to address the Peel District School Board, not in a courtroom, within a boardroom, serene, kind, and teeming with individuals who genuinely cared about doing things correctly. I was not asked to apologize. I was invited to assist. The chairwoman stated, "We would like you to act as an independent construction advisor for future educational projects. Someone who prioritizes safety over shortcuts is needed." "Yes," I replied. I was on the edge of the Maple Street Elementary construction site 2 months later. Once more, the gates were open. However, a different team was in control this time. Brennan and Associates, a company known for creating long-lasting structures, and I was with them. But this time I wasn't the foreman. Instead, I was the one who refused to do something when it mattered. That morning, the new concrete mix, 35 megapascal, confirmed on site with triple-check documentation was being poured. I took one last look at the strength reports. They were flawless. "Mr. Bennett," behind me, a voice called. The new project manager, Lisa Hendress, was there. "A walkthrough is what the principal wants to do." "I'm prepared," I declared. We went on a framing tour. I sensed the integrity of the construction and the decision that led me here as I ran my palm over the healed foundation and touched the metal beams. Sandra and Emma paid a visit that afternoon. Emma was wearing her camera around her neck. "It's for school," she said, smiling. "I'm starting with you for our feature. People who build our future." She snapped pictures of the new slab, the steel supports, and the safety signs I had demanded be placed at each intersection. "Amina's younger brother will be among the first children here next year," she continued, lowering the camera. "He is ecstatic." I grinned. "Tell him that his time in school will never end." I stayed for a while as the sun started to set over the location. I surveyed the neighborhoods I had assisted in creating. Workplaces, clinics, homes, some had flaws. Others, solid. However, this one was correct. Ben's message chimed on my phone. "Saw the announcement of the school's opening. I am honored to have collaborated with you." With my hand on the steering wheel, I sat in my truck and reflected on all that we had lost, as well as what we had won, because sometimes it costs everything to do the right thing. You get everything back sometimes. I used to believe that being quiet would maintain harmony, that it was safer to walk away than to get up. But one thing has come out of everything I've sacrificed and gained, even when no one is looking. Dignity is worth protecting. This tale, it's only one of several. Numerous more exist people who have been marginalized, silenced, and deceived simply for doing morally. I want you to know that you're not alone if that describes you right now. Furthermore, you are not helpless. Patience is sometimes the greatest strength. Silence is sometimes the best course of action until the time is right. Remember, nevertheless, that being calm does not imply being weak. Being strategic does not imply being passive. We appreciate your presence, your attention, and your listening. If you were moved by this story, please comment. Tell us what you think. If you want to hear more tales like these, type 1 below. And I hope you would share your own tale if you have one that taught you the true meaning of justice. Listening to one another helps us learn more.